Welcome back to another Value Bites episode. Today, I am so excited to have Joe English with 360 Consulting. Joe and I have known each other for years now, and so it's about time that we got him on the podcast. We're going to be talking about sales and marketing alignment and also some sales process fun. We're all super process-oriented people around here. So Joe, to kick things off, tell us a little bit more about you and 360 Consulting and how you help your clients.
Sure. So, Joe English, and by the way, thanks for having me. I was starting to wonder when the invitation was going to come, but no. So I've been in sales pretty much my entire career, as well as having owned marketing in my past. In my W-2 life, I spent over 3 decades in W-2 roles, and now do consulting work. And so 360 Consulting helps small mid-market businesses either build their sales engine from scratch or fine tune that engine into a high performance machine so you can go win the revenue race. Clients kind of tend to work with us if they're not firing on all cylinders for one reason or another. So maybe not growing the way they want, or maybe they're growing so fast it's breaking other things. Don't have time, right? Typically, smaller businesses, owner operated, don't have time or expertise to effectively manage sales. Or that whole, this is a tough one for everybody, don't know how to recruit, hire, onboard, compensate, develop sales talent, because they're, salespeople are a little more unique than the average bear. And kind of what makes us a bit different than most consultants is we don't do it to you, we do it with you. So we work really hard with clients to kind of use the secret sauce in their business and build best practice sales processes for predictable, profitable revenue growth. So that's kind of our story.
That's awesome. And I love that y'all are so process oriented because we are big on processes. We kind of believe that anything you can't develop into a process might be a little bit of a waste of time to do in your business. So talk to me a little bit more about why those sales processes are so important to your process. And then also talk a little bit about your sales framework. I've heard you talk about that before in the past and how that helps organizations just be more structured so that they can be more successful.
Sure, it's a great question. At the end of the day, I think most people understand that a lot of the functional roles in any business have processes they follow. So operations clearly has a process. If you're in manufacturing and you have lines, there's very specific processes. Accounting follows process, engineering, kind of you name it. It's shocking to most people that sales actually has a process, but we're no different, right? So just being friendly and outgoing and sociable doesn't necessarily, although it helps, but it doesn't necessarily make somebody good at sales. You need what's called clarity of task. And people in any role, in any business, or in any organization, not even businesses, kind of need to know what's expected. So Chris, one of my business partners, likes to say, sales is easy. Just sell some customers, sell them some more, and then do it again. So, but we all know that the devil's in the details, and that's where process happens. And so one of the things we like to do is meet clients where they are, depending upon the size of their business, the structure, the industry and markets that they serve. And we have a proven process about how we engage with them, but we have more than one. And so one of those is to do assessments and really understand where they're at. We think about the infrastructure and what we consider to be the 4 fundamental pillars for any good sales engine or sales system. And then to your point, frameworks is something we've all seen, these business frameworks that have come out that are amazing. Some have been around a long time. EOS, scaling up 40x. There's a number of them and they're all great. You have to find the one that fits you. So we worked with Sales Acceleration that we're a part of, and we built the Sales Acceleration Framework, which is a framework specifically for sales to kind of get you on the right track with your strategy, your go-to-market, your value props, all those things, and then the execution so that you can own it, but we can kind of help architect those things. Really just in an effort to meet clients where they are in their journey as a business and from a sales success perspective.
So one thing I've seen in my experience just working in tangent to sales departments is that sometimes owners or management are a little afraid to put salespeople in that box, right? They feel like, well, if we start putting processes on them, that's going to kind of mess up the way they do things. And we don't want to fix what ain't broken. And I think there's almost a little bit of fear, right? Of putting expectations on salespeople that it might drive them out the door or make those people push back.
Mhm.
Salespeople are a little more they feel like they have the freedom sometimes to push back more than others might. And so, how are some ways that you address that with your framework, with the processes, and especially the assessments that you do to help both the owners and the management team feel confident in the expectations they're placing on that sales team to follow the processes and to, at the end of the day, play the game along with them?
Sure. No, it's a great question. Salespeople tend to be probably a little trickier, personality wise, a lot of times than others. And also, some of that has to do with that big giant target that's on their back, right? So to go get numbers and produce. And so they need a little bit of freedom. So one of the things we're really cognizant of is providing guide rails, right? So you have a process, but you don't want to take away people's objective judgment and ability to critically think through a situation. But if you have a process with a set of expectations, it's a roadmap. We call it a playbook of, where are you trying to get to? But we allow them the freedom within certain, guardrails to get there. So how they handle objection, leveraging their personality and their ability to develop relationships. Also, when you do your meeting cadences, you want to have that be a two-way street, right? You want the feedback and input from those resources because they're your tip of spear, right? So you need to have kind of that whole 360 input loop so that you're hearing from them. One of the things that we like to say is sales is the bridge, right? So you have a client and you have the business, and sales has to represent the business to the client, but also the client to the business. And so they need that voice. In my enterprise life, we call that voice of the customer, right? And so sales needs to have that voice. And we just need to be listening, but they also have to be cognizant of what's in the best interest of the business.
Love that. And I think, talking about the voice of the customer really brings us into another topic I wanted to touch on, which is the importance of sales and marketing having a great relationship and being able to really collaborate and work together. And, one thing that we've personally leaned on the sales team for is to bring in those concerns, the objections, what's keeping these buyers up at night, what are the things that we can really focus on from a marketing perspective. And so, in your experience, what are some ways that you like to see sales and marketing collaborate, create a more cohesive strategy, and work together?
Yeah, it's super important, like critically important. So, and it's always funny because there's a tug of war, right, between sales and marketing often, and that shouldn't happen. It does, but it shouldn't. So, in my W-2 life, not just within organizations, but also in with all the clients we served in a variety of industries and markets, thousands, because I'm that old. Um, it's where you see the head of sales, head of marketing, and CFO collaborating and being on the same page. That alignment is really critical. The CFO, because you need to be profitable in how you're approaching these things. And certain industries are a little bit different. B2C, I think marketing kind of takes the lead, and B2B sales tends to kind of take the lead in terms of informing marketing because of the more solution oriented concept. But there's no doubt that there's overlap in those functions, and being aligned is really critical. By the way, those lines have gotten nothing but more blurry in the world we live in today, where, you know, these devices and social media and the ability to interact it differently has blurred the lines even more. But it takes intentionality and a regular meeting cadence for sales and marketing. You should have combined KPIs that are agreed to by both parties. And how do you prioritize your campaigns and those things so that you're trying to reach the same goals, right? And you know, where they're in play, if you do incentives, bonuses, things of that nature to those teams, they need to be aligned versus in competition. So I'll give you a great example. This is not marketing, this is an operations, but we had a client that had operations incentive all around saving money. And then we had sales incentive all around growing the business, completely in conflict of one
Oh
another.
no.
And that can't happen, right? And so they're always butting heads, and it's because, well, that's how they're going to get their incentive pay. So being aligned from a corporate strategy and then from a sales and marketing strategy is super important.
Yeah, 100%. Are there some things in your framework or your processes that address some of this that help encourage that integration and collaboration?
Oh, absolutely. One of the biggest things that you do is you have to bring the teams in together, right? So that there needs to be that corporate strategy. And I know that you guys have a great process for this as well. And so, by the way, you get to share some of that. So, because I want to hear more about it. I know enough, but I learn every time I have a conversation with you and Randy. So, at the end of the day, you have to be pulled together. So, when you think about your corporate strategy, then what else serves that, right? So, when you think about the vision of the organization, so just to give you a couple of high level stats, so these are not Joe stats, they're not 360 stats, but if you thought about alignment of sales and marketing, which should service, the corporate, strategy, there's a 20% increase in revenue between companies that are well aligned from a sales and marketing perspective. That number becomes double for brand awareness. So companies well aligned have double the brand awareness gain and triple the average deal size. So it's really important that those two teams are in lockstep about what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times we've been hired to come in and work on a marketing strategy, and the sales team has no idea that we're even there. And we have to let the client know, like, this is not gonna work if we're not all on the same page, because they're either gonna feel like we're working against them, or we're making more work for them because now we've got a lot of processes and CRMs and things that they might not be interested in dealing with, or we're just not gonna get the results that we could because we're going in two different directions. And so it's
Yeah.
always surprising to me when in the year 2024 we're still not addressing these things as a whole and kind of letting these teams run rogue against each other.
Sure. Well, and I think too, by the same token, we always talked about silos, right? And they still exist today. We can't be siloed. It's easier for that to happen in big corporate structures. The vast majority of our clients are smaller businesses, some in the middle market, and it's easier, to get that alignment because they're smaller teams. We can do it, but it doesn't mean that the personalities don't necessarily want to have their kind of their own way. And so we just have to fight through that. And that's also part of a culture discussion within an organization, which is just as important and more important in today's world, but just as important for small business as it is for big business, probably more so.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably more so. Big business, it's a little more forgiving. We kind
Mhm.
of expect to have that a little bit of an anonymous culture when it comes to working in a large organization. But when we can all be in the same room together at one time, it's a lot different, and that culture means a lot more. I think too that, understanding where the business is going in the future and what that vision is for the organization long term also becomes a lot more important,
Mhm.
because there's a lot more that can happen, right, in small
Sure.
organizations. And if we're not sharing that, which Randy and I are huge on developing your vision and sharing it across all of the teams so everyone's moving forward together. But when we see owners kind of hold that close to them and not want to show what they have going on, or not want to share that they have no idea what they're working towards, that can really cause some issues too. So, talk to me about how important it is for you when you come in to work with an organization to know not just what are your revenue targets in the next 12 months, but where are you going in the long term? Where's this business going 5, 10 years from now? Is that something y'all talk about? And if so, how does that trickle down to sales?
Mhm.
And how do you help get buy-in from the sales team? Because they're going to influence that vision maybe more than anyone else.
Sure. I'll give you a couple of examples, a past and a current. But yeah, that business vision is super important, right? And again, you guys have a great vision process, which I love, and I love how you branded it. Let's talk about that a little bit. But at the same time, I'll give you I'll give you this synopsis, and then I'll kind of give you a case study example. So uh, you have we all take vacations, right? So the vacation is about this destination you're going to go to.
Hmm.
Awesome. So how are you going to get there? There's the journey. And my son and I were in this youth leadership group, and we have it's all around camping, and we do this excursion. And we talk about it's about the journey, not the destination, because you just never know what the journey holds for you. But it's something like a roadmap, right? And so everyone needs to have a vision for their business, a BHAG, call it what you want, right? But once that vision is established, how do you eat the elephant, right? One bite at a time. So you turn that into smaller chunks. So you could say, and I'm not the smartest guy in the world, so the math doesn't work. But if you had a 10-year vision, maybe put that into 3-year chunks. And then what are your 1-year goals to get there? And then what are the strategies? So you have a strategy, and then how are you going to execute? Right? That's a plan. So you have a strategy. How are you going to win? And then you develop a plan. How are you going to execute to get to those goals?
Hmm.
And then you rinse and repeat. You're going to have to pivot, adjust along the way as things don't work out, right? So you fail forward. But that's, for me, I'm oversimplifying. There's a lot of steps in there, but I think that that's really important. And so a good example is we had a client a couple of years ago that by any measure, super successful, right? They were, but they knew they could be doing better, right? So it was sort of a good to great story.
Yeah.
We engaged the entire leadership team, the marketing team, and the sales team all together and then individually one by one to get everyone's perspective. And so, as you can imagine, there's some finger pointing and lack of understanding of what, roles and responsibilities, who does what and why. So then we have a workshop process that we go through, and it helped us to think about, I mentioned those 4 pillars earlier, their go to market, what was that overarching strategy, ICPs, value props, all those things. What was their organizational structure for sales, not for the entire business, but for sales supporting the overarching business goals, and then refining their sales process. And so that's not just in cycle deals, but top of funnel, in cycle, and then account management.
Hmm.
And so you have stages, and then within each stage, what are the steps that you need to go through? And then how do you execute all that together over time with consistency? And we kind of got the entire company on board and understanding because they all participated in the process of building it, which was hugely helpful.
Yeah.
Last year, they exceeded their corporate goals, way exceeded their sales and marketing goals, and they're ahead of plan this year to do the same with a pipeline that's triple what it was before we got there. And it's not because they didn't know how; they just didn't have the structure and the process for how to execute against it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's such a great story and such an important example of, first of all, why it's so key to have that journey mapped out, even if that journey might change, right? It's like flying commercial right now. Nobody knows what the hell is going to happen or if they're going to end up anywhere except for at the airport, but we could still share that plan with our team and stay agile together, especially as smaller organizations, and keep going down the path as a team instead of everyone kind of being scattered out doing their
Right.
own thing. So I love that. It's a great
Yeah,
vision
to your
too.
point, that you talk about owners kind of playing it a little closer to the vest. Um, Most of our clients get shocked when we develop our playbook for them, right? Which is their playbook. And then we're like, okay, we're going to have an all hands meeting and we're going to share this with everyone,
They go, you're gonna what?
including the janitor, right? And they're just like, what? And we're
Yeah.
like, no, we want people to know sales isn't just about, taking people out to lunch and, entertaining clients or whatever.
Mm.
There's a very significant process to how we win business. And be transparent and be vulnerable about your successes and your failures because you can learn from everyone, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's so important. And sharing it with the entire organization when you can get an owner to do that, I mean, no matter who you are, you probably influence sales and growth in some way, even if you don't realize it within your organization. You got
sure,
some little part of it. And so the more
absolutely,
people you can get moving in the same direction and understanding that goal and how you're getting there, just as you said, the faster you're going to do it, sometimes faster than you ever expected.
absolutely.
Anything. That's awesome. All right, Joe, I want to be respectful of your time, so I'm going to close this out here, but let our viewers know where they can connect with you, find 360 Consulting and you specifically if they've got more sales related questions, they want to argue with you about if marketing or sales should be leading the charge when it comes to alignment, or if they just want to know more about how you can help their organization.
Sure. Yeah. Listen, we love to chat with people. We just like talking about business and we love helping people solve problems. So whether you engage us or not, that's no big deal. I'm super easy to get a hold of. It's Joe at 360 consulting dfw.com. So 360 consulting at a dfw.com. And that's our website as well. So you can learn a whole bunch about us if you want to go peruse our website. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn. We're fairly active. We put a lot of content out there that I think we like to think is very valuable. You can go do these right now, tips and tricks. And so feel free to look me up on LinkedIn. I'm not the only Joe English in the world, but the bald guy with the 360 logo behind him, that would be me. So,
It's a pretty dead giveaway. All right, Joe. Thanks again so much for sharing your insights and for your time today.
absolutely glad to be here.